if you are dropping off your baby to somewhere and he's 6 months old, and then you leave and go and work that's a physical distance away, half your brain is still with your baby.
Totally.
And so how can you possibly focus and be as productive as you normally are when you are so connected to where your baby is and worrying, and you've just gone through the logistics of doing a drop-off, having to go through the emotional effects of that, and then physically driving somewhere else. Like it's a lot for anyone. It's a lot even just to be a parent, let alone to be a parent plus doing paid work on top of that and all the other mental load. That's a whole entire podcast series, right?
That's a series.
That's a whole series.
Hey, I'm Loz McGlynn, and this is Yeah the Gals, a podcast for the ones doing the juggle. I'll be chatting with women in the thick of it, those taking big leaps, and experts with the insights that we usually type into Google at 2 a.m. If you're winging it like me, you're in the right place, and I am so glad you're here. Let's get into it. Lauren, you and I actually first started chatting 2 years ago, which is weird because I went back through my Instagram messages, and it was when I first started the podcast, and you were you hadn't just had your first, but you were pregnant with your second. You have to like rewind and be like, what has even happened in that time?
I was pregnant with my second, so I would have been, I think we were messaging when I was getting my haircut, something by Grace, and I remember being quite pregnant.
Yes. And it's wild to think we've both had another child since then. You've sort of birthed a business baby that's just like well and truly established in that time. So this conversation's been a long time coming, and I'm so glad to sit down with you. Let's just start by saying, like, Lauren, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your business baby, BubbaDesk, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. So I'm actually a Cornish gal. Just to set the scene. But I'd been in Sydney for the last 16 years. I moved here when I was quite young with basically no idea, and figured it out in my 20s. And then 30 sort of hit, met my husband, had babies, bought a house, had a business, all with a really short space of time. So I feel like I've lived a couple of decades in a very short space of time.
Yeah, which I think a lot of people could empathize with that. I think there's like this pressure cooker when you meet someone, you get married, like you start a family, and then it's like all the things are happening. So yeah, very much. And throw COVID in there as well. If we had around the same time for you.
Yeah. So I met my now husband. 4 months later, COVID happened. We then disappeared to this isolated farm and spent 9 months basically just him and I, which was either going to really make us or really break us.
Yes.
So yeah, then we came back we bought a house on the coast, and then I had my first baby, Charles, during COVID. So, that brought on a lot of anxiety even before having the baby during COVID. And then when I had him, a lot of postnatal anxiety just hit me like a ton of bricks. Really wasn't expecting it. Didn't really know what that sort of perinatal anxiety was as I was experiencing it. And then I quickly learned, okay, it's a normal feeling for women at this stage of life. It's not normal for me.
Yeah.
And so then that just, when I was returning back to work, I returned after like 5 months of having Charles. That just made that whole process really challenging. And I remember touring a traditional daycare around the corner from me, and I just almost had like a visceral panic attack there because I just couldn't fathom him being on his own and me not being here. It just felt really unnatural and really against my maternal instinct.
Is that something that you had thought about when you sort of had Charles, and then that thought of returning to work? Did that emotional side ever come into your mind? Because it definitely didn't for me. It was the practicality of like, I'll have Ellie, and then this is how much time I've got off on maternity leave, and then this is when I'll go back to work, and that will be my life.
Yeah, totally. I had no anticipation of that being an element that I would have to consider, for sure. No, I was a high performer in my role prior to being pregnant, or I was obviously high performing during pregnancy, but then once I had my baby, that was just not my priority.
Yeah.
And my perspective really shifted. And so there was an element of me kind of disengaging from that life, that work, but obviously still needing to go through the motions to earn an income for the family. So all this was kind of going through my head as I was then also thinking about this concept of why don't we just pitch together as a mothers group, get some nannies, get a space, and do this kind of close proximity work arrangement. And then I was like, actually, this is a business idea.
Yeah.
And then we validated it with a closed Facebook group. And then quite quickly, it was a physical business that had launched across the road in Erina.
Wow. So it was like you you moved to the coast, you had Charles, you formed a bit of a mothers group locally. You had women who were in similar circumstances to you of really toying with having to go back to work. You went back though, didn't
Quite
you?
early.
Yeah. And so back in a really fast pace by the sounds of things. I actually listened to your podcast that you did with Ready or Not. So anybody listening, gives a great insight into like that experience for you. And then you were like, wow, like there are a lot of people that feel the exact same way for me. I don't feel like daycare is the right place for me. And so co-working spaces at that time did exist because I feel like COVID really amplified that too, to create just a co-working space. And then you were like, let's add a creche onto that.
Yeah, I mean, that co-working as a concept's been around for quite a number of years. COVID broke some, those that were sort of within inner cities, those that were on the fringes in the suburbs where people were living, you know, close proximity to their house, which made it accessible, logistically easy. They managed to survive. And you'll find that a lot of co-working organizations now are redirecting their energy and their funds to their more suburban locations. But no, the concept of co-working with childcare, it's present in Europe and it's a growing trend quite rapidly in the US and in the UK. No one's done it to our scale though. We are the largest by scale globally. But yeah, there's little pockets popping up, but the concept of a existing co-working space integrating childcare has not yet happened.
Yeah. And did that just like come to you? Do you remember the moment that you went, we need to do something like this?
Yeah, look, there's moments along the business journey that are just an absolute blur, to be quite frank, because I've been pregnant, had another baby, and it's just been quite a lot of just, you know, going through the motions. But I do remember the moment where Tom and I, my husband, were like, okay, let's do this. And I had all of these desks and chairs, like added to car. And I was like, should we do it? And there was just this huge gut instinct that I knew that this was an opportunity. And I knew that if I needed it, I wasn't alone. Like I was my perfect target market persona, but I knew that there was other parents, not just mums, other parents out there that felt the same way. A maternal instinct is a common instinct, right? Like it's not something that's just me. So yeah, we went for it. We hit buy, and next thing you know, we had workstations.
You just took the lead. And had you had any experience in running a business before?
No, but interestingly, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I attempted to start a business probably about 10 years ago that was in peer-to-peer fashion rental. So the same as what Designer X, which has just gone into receivership, and what's the other one called? There's another big one that's doing really well. And I was at the same time as that one launching, but I didn't have the capital. I got a $10,000 credit card, and then that only got me a certain way. Like we built the platform, but I had no marketing budget, and I had no network around me at that time to really take me to the next step. And I still needed to grow up a few years. You know, I still needed to mature in myself and have other security around me to really make that happen. So yeah, I've always wanted to own a business. I crave autonomy, and I work best when left alone on an island to do my own thing. That's how I used to operate at my prior roles in marketing and sales, much to the dismay of my managers, but that's just how I like to operate.
And I feel like as well, when you've got that drive and that passion, it doesn't go away. But equally, like what I've seen people be really successful in is when they identify a need, as you said, in your like a problem or a need that you have personally, it is then so easy to create and make something successful because you're like, I'm the archetype, like I'm the customer archetype. And you knew, like you were obviously speaking to other mothers in your network that, and I say mothers, but parents, because it's like quite universal, and but other people that needed that business model. So then what did that look like for you from your work perspective to then shift? And, did you pitch this idea to your other role that you were in of, I want to work in this way? Like, what did that look like for you?
Probably quite controversial from their side.
Yeah.
To set the scene, I used to work for 5 or 6 years for a US-based tech company that sold data rooms to M&A clients. So I was pitching to lawyers and bankers to buy this software. So already the environment is quite a tech bro kind of space. And then the clients that I'm pitching to are typically male, or they're very, very young females that have not yet hit that having baby kind of stage of life. So the environment that I had left during maternity leave, there was no other person that had gone through returning to work successfully after having a baby to idolize or to follow in the footsteps of. So I was kind of defining the pathway of what good looked like when it came to returning to work. And so, yes, I definitely built BubbaDesk in the wings of managing my own work. Luckily, I was quite efficient with my time with my day job. So I managed to have, maybe I did 4 hours on that during the day, and the rest was absolutely building on BubbaDesk. I can say that now, I'm not employed by them. And returning to work with Charles, there was a lot of upfront issues and experiences. I went over to Auckland very, very quickly after returning to work, way too soon, had a panic attack whilst presenting to a client. My milk dried up. Like, it was just a really terrible experience. And so I was determined that the second time round, after I had Harvey, returning to work, I was, one, going to take 12 months leave, because I didn't think that 5 months was long enough. And then obviously with Harvey, I'd already started BubbaDesk, so I couldn't have any leave, which was ironic. I had leave obviously from my main job, but with BubbaDesk, I was working harder than I'd ever worked before. So technically, I actually didn't have any. I was on emails after an hour of having Harvey.
Wow.
But what I did do differently on my return to work with Harvey is I pitched my return, including the use of BubbaDesk, and to work 100% from home, part-time. Now, as a US-based sales tech company that is very, when I say US-based, obviously they don't have much maternity leave, they don't really support their women in any sort of way. They said, blank, no, we can't do that. As a sales role, you cannot do it part-time. That made me fire up. And I said, okay, well, here's my pitch. And I took a week to build a pitch, build a response, all my reasons why, key performance metrics from COVID when I was working from home 100%, top performer in APAC. By the way, Mr. Employer, the legislation that came in last year now states that unless you can give me a very viable reason as to why I cannot have flexibility, given I'm a parent, been in a role for 12 months, then you can't actually refuse it these days.
Like, no doubt you were a high-performing salesperson. You're like, this is why you employed me.
Exactly.
So, like, quite literally.
You train me to do this defense mechanism to you right now.
Honestly, go you. I'm just sitting here like, yes, girl, that is so
they
good.
actually accepted it, right? So they went from absolutely no to, okay, 100% work from home for at least the first 6 months, and you can work 100%, part-time and 100% from BubbaDesk. So I did that, started back on Monday, and I quit on Friday.
Wow. Go you for laying that foundation though. Like, what a great case study for you.
And that's the main reason why I did it. There was 3 other women who were coming through to follow my journey. They just had babies. So I wanted to make sure that they can reference what I had said and did so that they wouldn't get turned down.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah. And to say that a company of that structure, that you were able to negotiate that framework, like, how good to then be able to say to anybody that's listening to this that it is absolutely possible.
Yeah.
If you are working in like a corporate structure environment, like, yeah, kudos to you.
Yeah, it's a difficult topic because, yes, there has been changes in legislation which makes it more on the employee side, when it comes to negotiating. But there's a lot of things to consider from where you are in your career, what kind of manager you have, how that might backfire, um, the risk you're willing to take to go through the motions. Is it actually really what you want? Is it worthwhile even going through those motions, or is it better off to find something that's more flexible in the first place?
Yeah.
But you were in an environment where they genuinely lay out those foundations of flexibility for women of childbearing years up front. So
Yeah.
they have a more genuine care.
Yeah, very true, and something that, like, needs to be considered for sure. But talking a little bit around BubbaDesk, I mean, it started with one site. It has quickly turned into very much more than one side, and lots of exciting things and plans on the way. But to explain what BubbaDesk is and what you can expect from being a part of BubbaDesk, how would you explain that?
Yeah, so it's like a mix between a childcare, a creche, and a nanny service, whereby it kind of looks like a childcare in that it's got sleep rooms, kitchenette, feeding area. It feels like a creche because of the drop-in nature, but it also feels like a nanny service because of very personalized care, and it's sort of a collaborative approach to the care. So we work really closely with the parents because of the fact that they are right there on site. So it's a really collaborative, you might work through, okay, Bub has woken up early from a nap. How do you want to approach the next nap? Or I think Bub might need a breastfeed. Do you want to pop in and breastfeed? Or everyone's fine. You keep doing you. I know you're busy, so just want to let you know that Bub's okay.
Yeah.
Get on with your work, sort of thing. So it's a real hybrid, which I actually think sometimes trips me up and trips the concept up, is how we describe it and how we position it. Because we say co-working with childcare. Now, childcare to some people equals daycare, traditionally daycare. Childcare by the Oxford Dictionary actually is all-encompassing of all different types of care for your child, which is the where I come from.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's because I'm English and we refer to the Oxford Dictionary regularly. But yeah, so it's an alternative to daycare for some, those that obviously are privileged to be able to work from home. And I acknowledge that not everyone has the flexibility to do that. And it's also a really nice, gentle transition from 100% your baby's only in your care to working towards out-of-home care with people that are not your immediate family. And we find that people like me who are anxious mums and, quite nervous first time around leaving their baby, it's a really just nicer way to ease into out-of-home care because of that close proximity. You can pop in anytime.
Yeah.
Our team are really used to a mum approaching with a little bit of angst. So they walk them through, they hold their hand, they make sure they're okay. If they need to cry, they have a cry. Like, it's just a more reassuring kind of space.
Yeah. And I was really lucky to go in and do a tour a little while ago. I loved walking in, and there was like a dad that was sitting and working, and then came into the room. So the working space is amazing. You've got like little pods as well, like the silent soundproof pods.
Yep.
And the educator who I met was so phenomenal, and it's everything you imagine it to be, and the feeling there is so warm. When I had my first Eloise, it was just, my maternity leave left. She started going to daycare. My husband looked after her for a couple of months with his paternity leave, and then that was just the only option. That's just what you did. And I love, I'm really grateful for the daycare and the educators that we have with her. And with my second, I have really struggled. And I think it's because I know that there's other options and there's other ways and approaches. equally, I now work in a company that really acknowledges that people need to be able to be mothers alongside work. And when I spoke to them about the concept of, would you guys consider, me having a space like BubbaDesk to work from, they were so open to the idea, and they were like, yep, send us over all of the information. So from an employment perspective, because you've worked closely with quite a number of employers and, quite a few big employers, you've got people like Canva who have jumped on board as an employment benefit, another a few others. So what does that look like from the employer's perspective to support someone?
Honestly, it's really simple, right? So the approach to Canva, it's funny. Like the ultimate was Canva for me because they're the kind of leaders they're a unicorn, right? They're a really loved, well-known, iconic business in Australia, and they have a really good parental support process. They have an entire team that just looks after it, right? So my pinnacle was Canva, and as a salesperson, I was like, get Canva, everyone else will follow.
Yeah.
And so me getting Canva, it was funny. It was a roundabout way because I was doing all the traditional ways, LinkedIn, cold messaging. Turns out one of their key head HR people was using BubbaDesk instant letters. And so was a bunch of other people. And internally, they were all saying to their employee benefits person, hey, let's do something. We've got to do something with BubbaDesk. And so then I ended up being connected with the employee benefits person. They were like, yeah, let's have a meeting. I was in Queenstown at the time, so I had to hire a little pokey co-working space in Queenstown. So ironic. And then go and basically I was thinking I was pitching. They were just like, yep, cool. Let's do it. And I was like, oh, well, that was easy. But it's because they just get it. It's just such an obvious thing to just say, hey, employees, we're endorsing you to use BubbaDesk. They've given us 10% discount. Go and use them if you want. That's all it is, right? It's nothing bigger than that. It's same with the Woolworths Group. We are now part of their employee benefits program. They employ thousands, tens of thousands of employees, of which a decent portion are head office based. So this is, again, going to be really important for them. And of course, as soon as we announce it, I have existing members pop up being like, oh, hey, I work for Woolworths Group and I get the discount, which I knew would happen. And yeah, we're working with another one of a big bank, which, traditionally and in the news and media and things, they appear to be a little bit backwards in terms of from a flexibility point of view, but they still have to, by law, support their parents in this returning to work. And they have to be careful around this, how they arrange flexible arrangements. And it is very much case by case from my understanding. But they see the value, again, of providing something that just makes sense. It's really simple to integrate as an option for parents, right? It's all about options. You have the option of doing traditional daycare. You have the option of having close proximity on-site co-working with childcare like us, or you have the option of using a nanny.
Yeah.
And it's whatever parents want to choose. So yeah, the direction we have with corporates is looking at wider organizations that work with hundreds of corporates nationally in ways that support parents from a holistic point of view. So that's kind of the way forward that we're working with corporates now. But
have you taken a second to step back and go, I am currently working alongside Woolworths as a partner who provide info, or Canva, let's just acknowledge that for a minute. Is that something that you envisioned?
We didn't envision it when I started the business. Absolutely not. The original idea was, let's just do it for the period of time that I need care personally. As long as it covers costs, then great. I've saved money on childcare, and it's enabled me to work. The issue with me is I get quite passionate about what we could achieve. And so the vision has always been be Australian parents' first choice of care when returning to work, right? That's a big vision. And every single month, it seems, we gain more momentum and more opportunities sort of open up for us. And the more, what I would recommend to anyone is the more you start just having chats with anyone that's a partner, that might be another brand that is in the same category as you, or someone that's aspirational that you want to work with. Australia's a small market. Like, once you start having conversations, it quickly starts to snowball into bigger conversations and more introductions and a larger network. And people genuinely want to help. Like, if you've got a product or a service that is enabling something that is better than what they currently have, or another option, most people want to look at it, at least have a conversation, have a meeting. It's just one step in front of the other. And the steps do keep getting bigger, but it's somewhere we're going to keep tracking. We're going to keep going.
Yeah, and see where it goes. But like, congratulations. What a huge, like, so amazing, you know, a need that you filled for yourself has turned into something that is multiplying quite quickly, and things are happening. And, you know, like, to your point, I think businesses need to provide the support because they're losing good people. Like, they're losing the potential of a really good employee because that doesn't fit with their current personal lifestyle, you know? And like, to your point, like, things change when you have kids, but it doesn't make you any less motivated to, you know, if you have a strong work ethic, you have a strong work ethic, but you just want to be able to prioritize motherhood and work alongside, well, for me, in my case and in your case as well, is to then still be able to do the job but be there for your children because they're only so little for so long. I think that's so important. And, you know, I don't know if you know any statistics around output for people that have been given like an environment where they can do both and be flexible, because, you know, there's probably conflicting research when we all went into lockdown around output from people working from home and not. But do you have any statistics around what that?
The general sense is that it doesn't have any negative impact, especially for mothers, which is our space, obviously. If anything, I think it increases productivity. I think there's a element of, if you are, and not for everyone, but certainly for a large portion, if you are dropping off your baby to somewhere and he's 6 months old, and then you leave and go and work that's a physical distance away, half your brain is still with your baby.
Totally.
And so how can you possibly focus and be as productive as you normally are when you are so connected to where your baby is and worrying, and you've just gone through the logistics of doing a drop-off, having to go through the emotional effects of that, and then physically driving somewhere else? Like, it's a lot for anyone. It's a lot even just to be a parent, let alone to be a parent plus doing paid work on top of that, and all the other mental load. That's a whole entire podcast series, right?
That's a series.
That's a whole series. So I did actually survey, because we were targeting employers, I did survey our member base around it, the effects of using BubbaDesk and productivity, and has it affected your work in any sort of way? And the general consensus, like I mentioned, was it has had a improvement in productivity. It's also improved equity in the household, because it's enabled for my partner and I to share coming into BubbaDesk, so that I can then also go into the office when I need to, which also has a direct impact on my career trajectory. I had one very casual, candid conversation with a member in the kitchen one time, and he was like, "Thank you so much for building BubbaDesk. It's actually enabled me and my partner to buy a house earlier on, because I'm able to come here with our bub and she's able to get more shifts. I think she was a nurse, which has enabled us to earn more money and buy a house." So there's actually a direct impact.
Yeah.
I actually do hear a lot about it, because parents feel inclined to message me quite often about their stories. And I love that, because it is what gets me out of bed every day to continue to do it. So yeah, there is a direct impact that is positive to not only an employer and the way that they employ and set parents up for success, but also a direct impact to household. Down to the things like, I had a member told me that she's been cooking more because she's able to do her time of productivity during the day, come home, she still feels like she's got energy for her children because she's directed her energy in the right directions all day. That's made her feel like she's achieved something. And she's a more pleasant and present mum in the evening that wants to cook.
Yeah.
How nice is that? I feel the same way when I use BubbaDesk.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing too is employment, like employee satisfaction. Because I know for like the company that I work for at the moment, I am so grateful to them because they have just welcomed me and my children with open arms.
Yeah.
I started working with them in October, and it was like a consultancy position, and they were willing to fly my whole family to a conference in Byron Bay and said, bring your 5-month-old to the conference. We'd love to see her. Like that in itself, and then to have the conversation around BubbaDesk and for me to not even feel like I had to pitch it to them. I was willing to, but they were like, yeah, we would love to see something like that. My perception and my job satisfaction just from those couple of conversations are so like, I'm so grateful, but also how cool. I'd never want to work anywhere else. Like you're going to empower me to be both.
Yeah.
Like I think there's got to be something to be said about
Totally.
that.
I was chatting to Canva yesterday, and they were saying that one of their most popular benefits is that they actually offer employees vacation care activities. So like an external party will come in and run get activities for them, and they say it books out like immediately, and it's the most popular thing that they offer as an employee benefit. Whereas when it triggered me with your Byron trip. In sales, quite often with these big tech companies, if you hit a target and you're in the top X amount in the world, you get sent on like it's a holiday essentially, a club. And I made it most years. One COVID, I never actually went. COVID, and then had a baby, and then returned to work and had a young baby. And the return to work having a young baby, I wanted to go, but they said, oh, we can't really have babies at any of the events. So it was like not baby friendly, even if I wanted to go.
So interesting.
Yeah, it wouldn't have fitted in with the tech bros.
Yeah, the tech bros. Speaking of like, I guess what would you say to somebody who might be in a position where this is an option for them and they want to start the conversation? Do you have any advice on like the way to approach it? Even looking at your website though, you provide most of that information for employees and employers and people that are running their own businesses as well. So this is for more than just if you're, working in a company or corporate environment. There's like so many different people that this is suitable for. Yeah.
Honestly, use me as the salesperson in the situation. No, look, I think it's finding the right guidance on how to even structure the conversation in the first place, and making sure you're doing your homework on how you want to position yourself as to why it makes sense for you to work from BubbaDesk, why it makes sense for you to have flexible work arrangements in the first place, and then how you will still manage your performance and hit your KPIs. That's as a business owner myself now, I understand that side as well. Like from an employer perspective, they want to understand how things will still get done and what the effect it will have on their business. If you run a budget, like make sure you anticipate how you might need to fill in gaps and how you might need to change your team or whatever it might be. Do the hard work for your employer so you're answering all the questions they might have. Yeah, ask ChatGPT how to structure a conversation. It's all out there. And then, yes, we do have a lot of information on our website. Yeah, we will build more case studies around the success of Canva integration, for example, Woolworths Group, the other one that's about to go live, which is a big bank. And that will enable employees to point to, these guys are doing it. They're doing it well. We should be doing this too. Yeah. And it's not forever. It might just be for the first 6 to 12 months of my return to work. Yeah. And that's what employers need to recognize, that it's not forever. It's a solution just for
a transitional period.
Yeah.
And how many, let's talk about how many sites you've built. So BubbaDesk has been, when was BubbaDesk born?
September 2022.
22. We're now in 2025, 2.5 years-ish later. Yep. You have how many sites?
So we've got 4, soon to be Canberra and soon to be Inner West, and then a couple of others that are brewing at the moment.
Watch this space.
Yeah, it could be quite a big year in terms of expansion for us.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So exciting. I have a few more questions. One, I actually want to talk a little bit about you because you have created this business through the lens of your own experience. But with that, we spoke about this separately, is you've sort of built a little bit of a personal brand around BubbaDesk. What has that been like for you to build a business to provide a benefit for someone, but then equally you've sort of become a little bit of a voice um, for women like yourself, and yeah, a bit of a personal brand's come with that. How has that journey been for you?
Look, it's been a journey because if you look at my personal Instagram, there's not much happening there, and it never has been. I do recall back in the day, it's just funny, like when Instagram first came out, like I had a friend that was very much into Instagram, and I did get a bit of a following because it was easy back then. If you bought something from Star Runner and then like tag them and then they reshare, you get like 100 of followers. So I actually at one stage was kind of into it. And then I just went, whoa, no, deleted everything and was like, it's just not me. So then when we built BubbaDesk, I knew that I had to put myself out there and somehow, talk about it. We're defining an entire new category. We are giving parents the permission to even think about us as an option. They need someone to look to as a guide to what it might look like. So there was a bit of an identity, who am I moment during COVID happening, having a baby during COVID, all this kind of post anxiety thing coming up, to be like, I'm not really sure what I stand for anymore, who I am in a way, because it just churns a lot of things up. I feel like when you have a baby, a whole new you is born as well. And you are in this high growth stage in a really good way. From my perspective, I felt like I really became who I was meant to be and who I truly always was. Building my own brand and own persona has been a journey, but also has the business, right? Like it's just followed the same trajectory and development as BubbaDesk, really. As BubbaDesk has got more confident, I've got more confident. As BubbaDesk has really found its positioning in the world and the market, I have as well. And it's a careful balance between, I am not an expert in any of this. I'm not an expert in childcare. I'm not an expert in running a business. I'm not an expert in co-working spaces. I'm not an expert in return to work. I'm just not an expert in any of it. But so I never wanted to be the voice that was claiming that. I have my own opinions about things. I have my own opinions on how I raise my children, how I want to return to work, but that's not everyone's cup of tea. So I don't want to be pushing that down people's throats. But, we found this positioning around, and I use it quite a lot in marketing. It's trust your instinct. And I think that resonates a lot with a lot of people. And that's what I always come back to as, brand ethos, parenting ethos, brand persona. Like, it's just go with your instinct. And usually that's right, I think, if you do listen. And if it's not, then, oh, well, that's a learning and off we go.
You are doing a sensational job of emulating your ethoses. And I think you have done some amazing things, just even making it an option for people. It's certainly, as I said before, like when my daughter was younger, like my first daughter, it just wasn't something that was an option for me. But I think as people like yourself that build these concepts, and it continues to grow, and big really big businesses like your Canva, like your Woolworths, that then jump on board and make it it's like so easy. It's just like, yeah, it's actually really easy to do. It's just going to continue to make other people it an option for other people, which is really exciting. Something that you mentioned when we first started chatting was around the connection that you made with your mother's group, having moved up from Sydney into the Central Coast, and being able to be a part of a little community that was going through the same transition that you were into motherhood. And then through BubbaDesk, some other concepts have come out that you're working on. You're a busy gal. So talk to me about some of the other things that have happened alongside BubbaDesk.
So back to trusting my instinct. We'll wind back and I'll set the scene for my experience in finding a mother's group. So during pregnancy with Charles, obviously it was a bit of a different time because of COVID. So it was slightly, it's an anomaly in terms of an experience that you might have during pregnancy. But I was really wanting a connected group during pregnancy. I was craving meeting people that were going through the exact same stage of pregnancy as I am, the exact same worries, the exact same planning. What are we thinking about? How are we giving birth? All that kind of stuff. And there was no means to find a group other than to put yourself out there on Facebook, which I did. And I said, hey, mums, I'm due in September. Does anyone want to be my friend, essentially? Luckily, I had quite a few people say, yep. They commented. I then had to go through the very clunky way of adding them to a group, which means you have to like add them as a friend, then add them to the group. Then sometimes they miss it because it goes to message requests and then you lose people. And by the end of it, I'm like, I think I've got most people, but I probably haven't. I probably lost a few. So then we had this group and then we started chatting and it was great, right? We all connected well. Everyone felt the same way about wanting to connect with us. Some were second-time mums, so they weren't quite as naively unaware of what was to come. And then postpartum came along and we already knew each other. So we could share a little bit more deeply and we could share a bit more raw, and they knew us a little bit. We knew each other a little bit more. So maybe we knew if we had to check in on someone a little bit more based on what they might have been talking about or things like that. So, and then we've had a great runway in terms of our mothers group. However, trying to organize a catch up with a group of mums, trying to get around nap time, bottle time, all the other times, and then you do a poll, and then you lose it somewhere in the chat, and then you try and decide where to go that can fit 15 prams, and then by the time you've done all this, it's like a whole day has passed, which is fine because maybe you don't have much else to do on mat leave, but it just all felt a bit clunky and not very organized. And as a type A personality, I doesn't sit very well with me. So I've been thinking of this idea more quite deeply since probably Christmas. And then obviously because I actually physically can't not work during our Christmas break, I spent the entire time thinking of names for this idea because I knew as soon as I named it, I would then be attached to it and then I would make it happen. So I did my naming technique that I have and came up with this idea. Well, how we had the idea, we came up with the name Wombee, which no one gets, but it's actually womb, as in where you grow a baby, and then you just E on the end. So Wombee.
When you break it down, it makes total sense. But because we live in the Central Coast and there is a suburb called Woombroo and everyone refers to it as Wombee, when you said that, I thought, oh, okay, it's a location, but that actually makes total sense.
And no one pronounces it
brilliant.
Wombee. Everyone says Wombee, which is fine. It's called Wombee. Let's roll with it. I love the name personally, and it's hard to name something these days with
I love it.
being able to find a .com and then be able to like actually register it. So anyway, the idea is we're building a app platform that enables people to find a mothers group or create their own if they already have an existing mothers group but just want to use Wombee because of all the other benefits that we'll have. And we have just developed and put the brand out there. You can find us at wombee.app on Instagram. We're in build. We're having really interesting conversations with some really top brands around how we bring a brand experience into it. We're talking to experts like lactation, sleep, midwives around how we can build this content and expert ecosystem into the community as well. So basically, we're like Peanut, but for groups. So Peanut's a bit icky. You're kind of swiping like Tinder on mums and really judging.
Yeah, I had a brief experience with Peanut, but yeah.
So us, it's like, we already have the behavior of going to a mother's group postpartum. We're just giving the opportunity to find groups during pregnancy. We're also given the opportunity to find an alternative group should no one gel in your community-led postpartum mothers group. And we're also giving the opportunity if you grow out of that mothers group or you want to have 5 mothers group because you got all this time that you want to do things every day with your baby. So yeah, we're building Wombee. It's actually going live in July and we're just focusing on the Central Coast as our launch base. So anyone that's pregnant, new mum, just wants to get involved, we
Go
are
check
going.
it out. That is incredible. Like, does your brain ever sleep?
It didn't last night, actually, funnily enough, which is just great before a podcast.
Oh, it's just brilliant. And it's just like you're talking and I'm like, that fills the need for so many people. And again, based off an experience that you had, to then come up with this amazing concept. Like, you're like the gift that keeps on giving for mothers, like modern day mums. So, can't wait to see it. You said it's live, like
So Instagram's live, wombee.app.
so we can check it there.
The website's going to be live soon. But yeah, I'm going to be pretty candid on the Instagram. I should start a TikTok. I'm just not a TikToker.
Yeah,
So
find the TikTok
it's
hard.
hard.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna commit and I'm gonna try
Go you.
TikTok.
Yeah.
I don't want to, but I'm gonna try. But yeah, so Instagram will sort of, we'll start to give teasers as to what's coming, what we're building, who it's for, the different use cases, and then live in July.
Wow, incredible. Like, Lauren, congratulations on everything that you have done. It is so awesome. It's I feel like it's like everything that you're creating is like moving into this new era, and it just like coincidentally goes alongside my season of life. So I'm loving it. If there's anything else, like where to direct people? You've got an Instagram page and a website for BubbaDesk.
Yeah, you just search BubbaDesk with
Love
one.
it. But you are so open to chats and conversations with people who are interested, employers that are interested.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add before we wrap up? This has been amazing.
No, I don't think so. But I'm really, like, I love collaborating with brands and people, and what I've found so far in this journey is the world of brands, in particularly the parenting and motherhood space, are really supportive of one another. A lot of them are very similar kind of founders, had a problem, saw an opportunity, built it themselves from the ground up to also enable them to be flexible and be close to their children. So we resonate a lot with those types of founders. But if there's anything that anyone wants to do with us, with Wombee, with BubbaDesk, with me, then I'm always open to conversations.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time, Lauren. This has been awesome. I also just want to say, great name, by the way. Lauren.
Oh, yes.
Let's just drop that in there.
Not a loss, though.
No, I know.
Not a loss.
Yeah, not a loss. A Lauren. I love it. I can't wait to see where BubbaDesk and Wombee goes in the next 12 months and beyond. You guys should be so proud of everything you've achieved. So go you.
Thank you.
Awesome.